Big crashes today in another photo finish where Ryan Blaney edges out Kevin Harvick to win the race. Let's talk about NASCAR's playoff race at Talladega. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR at Talladega. Huge, big crashes, major playoff implications for many different drivers, but in the end, it was Ryan Blaney punching his ticket into the next round by just a mere inches over Kevin Harvick trying to get his final win. Let's break down all the wild action that happened at Talladega. This racetrack never disappoints. Another great finish. And I really enjoyed this race from start to finish. We saw some really action-packed three-wide racing for majority of the race. The pit stops really interesting, but in the end, Kevin Harvick, Blaney, and a few others and William Byron set themselves up for a chance to get the win at the end of this race. And let's go ahead and dive right on into it. Let's talk about the finish in itself. Coming to the checkered flag, you had Ryan Blaney, Kevin Harvick side by side. Ryan Blaney getting a push from that 24 car of William Byron, and then unfortunately Kevin Harvick's push, the 36 car of Riley Herbst, who was racing today, was trying to push Kevin Harvick, but unfortunately got turned, causing a huge accident coming across the finish line. Harvick just didn't quite have the speed without that push to get by Ryan Blaney, and I think that if Riley Herbst was able to stay on his bumper like that and push him just a little bit harder and just push him all the way to the finish line, I think Kevin Harvick would have had a much better chance, and I think he probably would have got to Ryan Blaney in that instance and got his final win. So that's unfortunate for Kevin Harvick. It's obviously very exciting for Ryan Blaney to get another win at Talladega. This is his third win at Talladega. You better go back to 2000. Let's take a look at his Talladega finishes real quick just to show how dramatic this is. Let's go back to 2019 when he barely edges out Ryan Newman coming to the finish line in a fantastic photo finish and a wild finish there back in October of 2019. Then we could go back to the summer race we had there in 2020 where Mike Joy actually thought that Ricky Stenhouse won this race. That's how close it was. Ryan Blaney edged out Ricky Stenhouse for his second Talladega win. And then we look at the finish today, another extremely close finish for Ryan Blaney for his third finish. I think I don't even think Ryan Blaney has won this in his three Talladega finishes. I don't think he's won one by more than a quarter length of a car. So impressive for Ryan Blaney. I talk about this every time we go to a Daytona Talladega race. These crazy Daytona Talladega style races Ryan Blaney is strong at and tends to always find a way up front at the end and tends to find a way to win it very commonly. Once again, his third win at this racetrack in only a handful of seasons. So it'll be interesting to see what he continues to do at this racetrack moving forward. And in the next round of the playoffs, he has now made the round of 8 with this win today. Remember, he was, I believe, 9 points out of the round of 8 going into today. So good for him to go ahead and guarantee his spot in after that wild finish. So let's go ahead and go through the entire top 10 while we're talking about the finish. You have Ryan Blaney got the win. Heartbreak for Kevin Harvick. Look, if I have one thing to say about Kevin Harvick in his final season, because I've been talking about him in his last year all year long, this is a very successful season. We go back and look at some other legends' final seasons, and they haven't been quite as dramatic. We have not seen that driver race for the win or race in contention for top fives or wins week in and week out. Kevin Harvick, he might not get that walk-off win. He might not get that final win this season, but he's come darn close. Just a few inches today losing to Ryan Blaney. You go back to Darlington, the Southern 500. I was in attendance for that race. A super unfortunate situation where a caution came out once again a few feet before he gets to the pit road line. Really frustrating there. That was a good chance Kevin Harvick would have won that race. One that really stings is Phoenix because that's his best racetrack, and that was all the way back at the beginning of the season in March, I believe, when a caution come out at the end of that race while he was leading, and he did not win at Phoenix earlier this year. So a bunch of races you could say Kevin Harvick should have won, and I know that that's coulda, shoulda, woulda, but at least Harvick was fun to watch all season long. It wasn't like his career fell apart in this final season, or he was just kind of riding around. He was in contention for wins multiple times all year long, and he's still in contention for 5 more races to go. Kevin Harvick can go out there and win any of those 5 races. So, and in Phoenix is coming up too at the end of the season. Even though he's not in the playoffs, definitely you could see Kevin Harvick go to victory lane. If he doesn't, Still glad to see him running up front all season long. William Byron, in his post-race interview, he was obviously disappointed that he wasn't able to get up front and get the win, but he was proud of a solid third-place day, kept the race car clean all day long, stayed out of the big last-lap crash. A solid day for William Byron, trying to gain that momentum. Remember, he's guaranteed into the round of 8 from a win last week, just trying to gain that momentum going into the round of 8 and trying to win his first championship, and he's probably one of the favorites, if not the favorite right now to do so. Denny Hamlin, solid day for him. He was outside of the top groove for a long time. Denny Hamlin was a lap down at one point. He was having trouble with all sorts of issues, but unfortunately for him was able to come all the way back up and finish in the top 5. How many times have we seen trouble at these types of tracks for Denny Hamlin, and he's able to come back up and get a good finish or get the win? You know, this is a guy that has 3 Daytona 500 wins, multiple wins at Talladega. He's very good at these types of races. I thought he was going to have a shot to get up there and go for the win. It didn't happen today, but a solid 4th place finish for him. He's now essentially guaranteed into the next round. It's 50 points in. It's not mathematically in, but it's almost in for Denny Hamlin. We'll talk more about the playoff picture in just a little bit. Corey LaJoie, we talk about him at these racetracks every now and then. I remember last year at Atlanta, he was really the star of the show. Another top 5 finish for him at a drafting style track for Corey LaJoie in the 7 car. Always tends to be maybe not winning the race, but up front at these type of races. Austin Cindric finishing in the 6th position, solid day for him. Justin Haley finishing out his year at Colleague, finishing in the 7th position. Chase Elliott with a solid 8th place finish, and Ryan Preece in the 9th position, who was rocking the Ricky Bobby paint scheme today. So solid shout out to Ryan Preece for getting in the top 10. Riley Herbst was very impressive all day long, running the top 10 for a long time. Was leading one of those 3 car. We had 3 wide for a while. He was leading one of those packs for a majority of the race. So that was fun to see Riley Herbst do a very good job all day long. At the very end, trying to push Kevin Harvick to his win, he finally got turned sideways where he couldn't get his top 5, but a solid top 10 for him. And I think he kind of got nudged there by Corey LaJoie at the end. I'm not sure Riley Herbst could have done a whole lot to avoid that crash in the last lap. So there's the top 10. Let's dive a little bit more into the playoff picture, and I want to start out by talking about some of the big accidents we had today. The first big wreck was obviously on lap 161. Brad Keselowski turns Carson Hocevar. It was an aggressive move, like Carson Hocevar said. You have to push on the top lane to try to keep that top lane going, and sometimes, unfortunately, it just gets the car turned. Maybe just a little bit too hard of a push there by Brad Keselowski. This is a common theme for Brad Keselowski, especially if you go back to the 2022 Daytona 500, which was the debut of the next-gen car at these types of tracks. He caused a lot of wrecks that day. I heard a bunch of people calling him the bulldozer that day, and that's maybe still playing true because Keselowski's an aggressive pusher. You have to be able to work with him and work with him and be able to get pushed by him aggressively if you want to be able to have a shot to win. Brad Keselowski's just really hard on some of those drivers. And once again, this is Carson Hocevar's I think, what is this, his 6th race, and he got turned sideways. And Hocevar said all day long he was great at pushing, he was great at being in the draft, but when he was trying to lead a line, that's when he quite couldn't get things figured out. So we'll have to watch Carson Hocevar. And he's already talking about learning in the Cup Series, so that's exciting for him as well. But that was a big wreck that obviously took out Brad Keselowski, Ty Gibbs. Brad Keselowski was the main playoff guy taken out in that crash, so that was a big implication for him. He's still 2 points above the cut line, but he definitely could have gained some more points there. And really, this is one of his racetracks. I thought he might have been one of the favorites to win this race today going in. So unfortunate there for Brad K. He was up front for a lot of the day as well. Then you had some problems for Ross Chastain as well. Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. going for the stage win, or some stage points at least for Kyle Busch. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. gets a little squirrely. Both of those guys go up the track, and then unfortunately some contact was made. Kyle Busch able to dodge Ross Chastain when he turned back over in front of him. Christopher Bell got some damage for that. Really shot up his day as well. Another one of those playoff drivers. Bell was able to continue to run, but just really hurt his day. Had no chance to go for the win with the damage on the front of the race car that he had. So with that being said, I talked about some of the big accidents today. Those were the 2 major incidents. Like I said, we had Ross Chastain, then we had the big wreck on lap 162, and then we had the huge crash at the finish of the race. So let's pull up the playoff grid and take a look at it. Once again, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, they have won. They have nothing to worry about going into Charlotte Roval next week. They are guaranteed into the round of 8, and they also get to carry the bonus points, the playoff points from this round that they gained into the next round as well to make the Final Four. Denny Hamlin, 50 points in. He's into the next round of the playoffs. Something absolutely insane is going to have to happen for him to not find his way in. He's going to have to finish last. Everybody else is going to have to go up there and win. It's not going to happen. Denny Hamlin, I would say, is very comfortably, almost guaranteed into the next round of the playoffs, and probably by the time we start the last stage, he will be mathematically guaranteed in next week at the Roval, unless he wrecks out at the first lap of the race. Christopher Bell, once again, I talked about how he had a rough day today, still 22 points above. He can still make the next round of the playoffs, just needs to have a decent run next week. Remember, he is your defending Charlotte Road Course winner. Chris Buescher, 19 points above. Truex Jr., who's had a somewhat disappointing playoffs. He did okay today at Talladega. This has not been his favorite racetrack at all. This is not his Truex's style of racing in any way, shape, or form, but Martin Truex Jr. survives, 17 points above. Ever since the playoffs have started for Truex, I've been very disappointed. We were talking going into the playoffs how, hey, this guy may be the championship favorite. That's definitely starting to slip as you see guys like Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, William Byron start to run better in the playoffs, while Truex has really fallen off since he did, when he was on that, summer run where he was winning a bunch of races. Kyle Larson, 15 points above. Brad Keselowski, like I talked about, got involved in that wreck early, had no chance to go up there and race for position at the end, is 2 points above the cut line as it stands right now. He's going to have to race for stage points and try to get a good finish next week at the Roval. So we'll have to keep an eye on that cut line. Very tight between him and Tyler Reddick, who can get in. And if I'm Brad Keselowski, I'm a little worried because who's one of the best road course racers in the field? Tyler Reddick, who you're going to be racing to get in, who's 2 points out, who has a road course win this season. Tyler Reddick is extremely well at the road courses, has 3 of those road course wins in the last 2 seasons. Ross Chastain, 9 points out after the trouble today. I talked about it. Yeah, it was out early. I believe that was coming to the end of stage 1, so had no chance to get stage points. Obviously, he's not going to get a good finish, finishing or wrecking out at the beginning of the race. Unfortunate for Ross, he's 9 points below the cut line right now. Bubba Wallace, with a decent day today, finishes 9 points below the cut line going into the next round. The thing I'm worried about for Bubba Wallace, road courses tend to not be his style of racing, so it's going to be tough for him. He's going to have to find a way to go up there and capitalize and gain. He's not trying to survive this road course. He's got to go gain points at this road course race, so we'll have to see what he can do. At Kyle Busch, I think when the final results come out, he ended up finishing 26, just couldn't do anything all day. He would run up front at times, but you could tell the car just didn't handle as well as he needed it to. Didn't have the speed he needed it to. Austin Dillon was obviously caught up in a wreck where he could have went and tried to help push him up front. It's really unfortunate for Kyle Busch because maybe it's not considered a mathematical must-win, but you have to treat this like a must-win. He's in a mess right now. Kyle Busch has to rely on the Roval being very good to him and him going out there and getting the win. And I'll go ahead and say it, I'm not very confident in Kyle Busch being able to go out there. Not the driver, but I'm just not very confident in how this season's going that he can go in there and get the win. Now, he has been fast at road courses, finished second at Circuit of the Americas earlier this year, had a good chance to win the Indy road course if it wasn't for an engine failure where one of the cylinders went out, which was really unfortunate. But Kyle Busch, 26 points below. This is not good at all for him. And as a Kyle Busch fan, it really hurt today that he wrecked last week at Texas, had to rely on a good run at Talladega today, didn't get a good finish, and now he has to go out there and, like I said, it might not be a mathematical must-win, but you have to treat this as a must-win if you're the driver of the number 8 Chevrolet, Kyle Busch, next week at Charlotte at the road course. It's going to be really difficult, so it's unfortunate for him as well. But that's it. That's really all there is to discuss after this wild, good Talladega race. I really enjoyed the race. I enjoyed the 3-wide action with no wreck. It kind of reminds me of Daytona earlier this year in the summer portion where there were 3-wide, action-packed racing for a large majority of the race with no giant crash that kind of ruined the race in a sense, at least to me. Some fans like the big wrecks. I personally not too big of a fan of constant wrecking, and we haven't got that at these plate races the last few seasons, and especially this year, so that's obviously great to see in my opinion. But that's it. That's all there is to talk about. Of course, like and subscribe if you like the video. Please share the video if you do. I really do appreciate it. And of course, about Kyle Busch and a must-win next week. Let's get rowdy.